Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Lila. I'm 32 years old, and right now, I feel like I'm unraveling. There's this knot inside me, something I've been holding back for months, maybe years, and I can't keep pretending it's not there anymore. I have to confess it, even if just to you, because it's been eating me up from the inside out. It's about him, about us, and the plan I had to leave that fell apart before it even began. The story starts with a kind of safe warmth, something I thought would last forever. When I first met Adam, everything felt electric. He was my coworker then, just like now, but back then, the late-night conversations, the secret smiles across crowded rooms, and the way his hand brushed against mine like it was the most natural thing in the world, it was all thrilling. We weren't just colleagues, we were this quiet, simmering excitement that promised more. At 26, I was young and full of hope. We would sneak out after long workdays and go for drives with no destination. He'd pull me close, and I'd feel like I was the only woman alive. His kisses were gentle but insistent, like he wanted to memorize every inch of me. I remember one night sitting on the rooftop of my apartment building, wrapped in his jacket against the cold, his arms around me, and feeling so alive, like nothing could touch us. But something shifted. Not all at once, but in the slow, almost imperceptible way that seasons change. The warmth began to cool, the electric buzz dulled. Now, at 32, I feel like I'm losing pieces of myself in the spaces between us. Our apartment is quiet most nights, except for the hum of the city outside the window. We still touch, but it's different. The way he wraps his arms around me feels more like a clasp, a hold that tightens when I'm supposed to stay put rather than a tender embrace. I remember last week, when I leaned into him after a long day, expecting that familiar comfort, and instead felt him pull away slightly, distracted, distant. His kiss didn't reach my eyes, didn't linger, it was a brush, a quick fix of contact that left me aching for more. I tried to tell myself it's just stress, exhaustion from work, the grind of adult life. But I know better. I feel it in the way he doesn't reach for me anymore when we lie in bed, how his fingers don't trail down my arm like they used to. There's a subtle frustration in the air, a disconnect that neither of us wants to name. I touch him tentatively sometimes, hoping to spark something, anything, but the spark never quite catches. Sex has become an awkward negotiation, a routine that neither of us seems eager to enter. I catch myself hesitating before initiating, wondering if he'll be present or just going through the motions. When he touches me, it feels distant, mechanical, like he's fulfilling an obligation rather than wanting me. And that silence afterward, the space where intimacy should live, feels cold and vast. The other night, after a rare, half-hearted kiss, he pulled me into a hug. But instead of feeling safe, I felt pinned, like I was trapped under his arms. I wanted to pull away, to breathe, but I stayed frozen, afraid of what breaking that hold might mean. It was the kind of hug that demands submission rather than offers comfort. And yet, beneath all this, I'm still drawn to him. I still remember the way his laugh used to light up a room, the way his eyes softened when he looked at me in the early days. That's why it hurts so much, the slow erosion of the man I fell in love with, the loss of the connection that once made everything feel possible. I had a plan. I told myself I would wait for the right moment to leave, to reclaim myself before I got completely lost. It wasn't an impulsive decision, it was measured, deliberate. I wanted to be sure, to have everything lined up, especially after seeing what happened to someone close to me. My coworker, Mark, recently left his girlfriend. Watching him navigate that breakup, the chaos and freedom, made me realize how trapped I'd been in my own quiet suffocation. I thought I could do the same, make a clean break, find my freedom, my peace. But then Adam found out early. Before I was ready. Before I could gather the courage. And everything, I mean everything, changed. The moment I realized something had truly shifted was a Tuesday evening, just a week ago. We were in the kitchen, the light dim, the clink of dishes filling the silence. I was trying to keep it together, telling myself to wait for the right time. He reached out, brushed my hair behind my ear, and I looked up at him, expecting some spark of that old warmth. Instead, I saw a flicker of suspicion, of something unspoken, and suddenly the distance between us felt like a canyon. In that instant, I understood that the secret was gone, and with it, the fragile hold I had on hope. The plan was ruined, and I was left standing at the edge of everything I thought I knew. Since that evening in the kitchen, everything has felt like walking on thin ice. Adam works from home as a software developer. His days bleed into nights, blinking between screens, coding sprints, and endless video calls. It's the kind of job that makes you physically present but emotionally absent. And lately, that's exactly how he's been, here, but not really here. He tries. I can see that. But his attempts to show me love have become clumsy, like he's trying to fix something broken but doesn't quite know how. Last Friday, after a marathon of back-to-back meetings, he came into the living room where I was curled up on the couch, scrolling through my phone, pretending to be distracted but really searching for any sign of the man I used to know. Without a word, he sat beside me, pulled me close, and started stroking my hair. The gesture should have been soothing, but instead, it felt mechanical, rehearsed. His fingers moved like they were running through a checklist, hair, shoulder, back, like a program he'd run 100 times before but forgotten the part about feeling. I leaned into him, hoping for that warm connection, but it was like pressing against a wall. I wanted him to ask me how I was, to listen when I told him about the loneliness I felt. Instead, all I got was touch without conversation. "I missed you today," he murmured, his breath warm on my cheek. But I couldn't say it back, not honestly. Because I felt like I was missing him too, but in a different way. I needed his heart, not just his hands. It's hard to explain. There's a part of me that craves deep emotional intimacy, the kind that builds trust and opens up space for vulnerability. Physical affection, as much as I want it, feels hollow if it's not grounded in that emotional connection. I tried to tell him once, during one of our rare quiet moments, that I felt invisible, like I was fading into the background of his life. His response was a tired smile and an attempt to kiss me. But the kiss felt rushed, desperate, and I pulled back. That's when the misunderstanding started to spiral. Adam took my withdrawal as rejection, and I couldn't blame him. How could I explain that I wasn't pushing him away because I didn't want him, but because I was aching for something more? Something words couldn't capture easily. The next morning, I woke up to find him already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, his eyes heavy but alert. He reached out, pulling me close before I could say a word. "You're shutting me out," he said quietly. "I'm not trying to," I whispered, the knot in my chest tightening. But he didn't seem to hear me. There's a pattern now. He tries to bridge the gap with touch, hoping it will fill the silence. I respond by retreating, needing space to breathe and think. He mistakes my need for distance as coldness or disinterest, and he doubles down on physical affection, trying harder to break through. It's exhausting. Last weekend was the worst. We had planned to spend the day together, just the two of us, away from work and distractions. But when I suggested we talk, really talk, about where we were, he shut down. "I'm tired, Lila. Can we just enjoy the day?" he said. So we did, or at least we tried. We walked through the park holding hands, but his grip was tight, almost controlling. I felt suffocated rather than comforted. I wanted to stop and sit on a bench and lay everything out, the fears, the disappointments, the ways I felt unseen. But the moment passed. I bit my tongue and smiled instead. At dinner, the tension hung between us like a thick fog. He reached across the table and took my hand, squeezing it, but it didn't feel like love. It felt like an apology without words. "I don't know how to fix this," he said, I searching mine. Me neither, I admitted. And that, more than anything, broke my heart. We're stuck in this loop where I need him to open up emotionally, but he thinks closeness means physical closeness first. He doesn't realize that his touch without tenderness makes me retreat further, like I'm a puzzle he can't solve by force. Sometimes I wonder if he ever knew how to love me the way I need to be loved. Or if I'm holding on to a memory of a man who's already gone. That night, the tension between us was thick enough to cut with a knife. We'd barely spoken since dinner, the silence filled with everything neither of us wanted to say. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers tracing the seams of the blanket, trying to steady my thoughts. Adam came over slowly, his eyes soft but uncertain. He reached for me, fingers brushing my arm like he was testing the waters. My heart wanted to leap into his touch, but my body stiffened instead. I flinched almost imperceptibly when his hand slid lower, grazing the small of my back. It wasn't that I didn't want him, I did. I just didn't know how to want this anymore. Hey, he whispered, kneeling beside me. I'm here. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe in us. He leaned in for a kiss, slow and tentative. But when our lips met, I felt nothing, no spark, no warmth, just a dull numbness that spread through me. I pulled back slightly, catching the look of confusion and hurt in his eyes. Lila, he asked softly. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm just tired. He frowned but didn't push. Instead, he tried to make me laugh by lightly slapping my butt as he stood up. I jumped, startled, and then my body tightened defensively. That small gesture, which used to make me smile, felt like a jarring reminder of how far apart we drifted. He sat back down beside me, rubbing his hands together awkwardly. I just want to feel close to you again. Me too, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But closeness felt so complicated now. I found myself overthinking every touch, every look, every word. When he hugged me, I worried if it was because he missed me or just wanted something else. When he kissed me, I wondered if it was love or just habit. The weight of it all pressed down on me until I felt like I was sinking. I don't know what you want from me, I said finally, my voice breaking. Lila, he reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I could see the hurt flicker in his eyes again, and I hated myself for it. I hated that I was shutting him out, even though my soul ached to be held and understood. Lying awake later, staring at the ceiling, the question kept pounding through my mind, why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened on a Sunday evening, the kind of night I'd imagined would be peaceful, a rare moment where we both tried to slow down, hoping to reclaim some of what was lost. I had cooked dinner, a small gesture to remind us of the early days when food and laughter were our glue. Adam sat across from me, his eyes tired but polite, and I could feel the tension crackling between us like static. We tried to make small talk, but it always felt like walking on eggshells. Then he said something harmless, really, that hit a nerve. You're distant lately, he said quietly. It feels like you're somewhere else. I wanted to tell him the truth. That I'd been planning to leave him. That I'd seen how my coworker Mark had broken free from his relationship, and I had a plan to do the same. That everything was falling apart long before he found out. But the words wouldn't come out like that. Instead, frustration boiled over, raw and sudden. I am somewhere else, I snapped, my voice trembling. Maybe you just didn't notice. He blinked, taken aback, but I wasn't done. I had a plan, Adam. A plan to leave you after Mark left his girlfriend. I thought I could do it quietly, on my own terms. But you ruined everything by finding out early. You made it impossible for me to control how this ended. The room went still. My voice echoed in the silence, heavier than I expected. Tears welled up, blurring my vision. I felt exposed, vulnerable in a way I hadn't allowed myself to be for months. The fight wasn't just about us, it was about everything I'd been carrying inside, the loneliness, the hurt, the disconnect. Adam looked stunned, his mouth opening, closing, but no words came out. His eyes searched mine, maybe for answers, maybe for the woman he once knew. "I'm sorry," I whispered, the fight draining out of me. "I'm so sorry." He finally spoke, voice low and unsure. "Lila, I didn't mean to ruin your plan. I just wanted to understand what was happening between us." His words were gentle but filled with a raw honesty that broke through the wall I'd built around myself. I wanted to reach for him, to bridge the gap with all the pieces left unspoken. But the shame held me back, the guilt of wanting to leave, of hiding from him, of lashing out like this. Later, alone in our bedroom, I stared at my reflection, the tears still damp on my cheeks. Why had I pushed him away instead of asking for help? Why had I let my fear and pain turn into anger? I didn't have answers. Only the ache of loss and the bitter taste of a plan that was never really mine to begin with. Weeks passed like slow-moving shadows. The apartment felt colder, emptier, though we still shared the same space. The silence between Adam and me had grown thick, less a pause, more a wall. I watched him carefully, tracing the subtle changes that spoke louder than words. He moved through the days quieter now, the spark behind his eyes dimmed. He stopped trying to pull me close or fill the silence with touch. Instead, he sat with his laptop, head bowed, shoulders heavy with something I couldn't quite name. Sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, his jaw clenched tight, like he was holding back a storm inside. I missed him fiercely. The man I fell in love with, the one who used to laugh easily, whose fingers traced my skin like he was memorizing me, felt like a ghost. But how could I reach him when I was drowning in my own guilt and confusion? One night, I found him on the couch, staring blankly at the TV screen but not really seeing it. I sat beside him, close enough to touch but hesitant. He glanced over, surprised to find me there, and for a moment, the old warmth flickered in his eyes. "Lila," he said softly. "Hey," I whispered back, my throat tight. We didn't say much, just shared a quiet presence. I wanted to ask him if he was okay, to tell him how sorry I was. But the words stuck, tangled in the ache of everything we'd lost. I thought about all the times I'd pushed him away, the sharp words and cold silences. I wondered if he blamed me or if he was just as scared as I was. Love wasn't simple or neat. It was messy and complicated and painful. And somehow, even with all the distance between us, I still wanted him. But I also knew that wanting wasn't enough. One evening, after a long day that felt heavier than most, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Was she the girl who had once felt safe and alive in his arms? Or someone else, someone lost? I had a choice to make. Could I try to rebuild what we'd broken? Could I risk opening the door to the pain and uncertainty that came with real connection? Or was it time to let go, to find myself again without him? My heart ached with the weight of both possibilities. For now, I didn't have the answer. But I knew one thing, that night, the apartment felt heavy with everything left unsaid. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the silence stretching until I finally broke it. "Adam," I began, my voice trembling, "I don't know if we can go back to how things were. But I don't want to lose you completely." He looked at me, exhaustion and something like relief in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you either." We talked, really talked, for the first time in weeks. About the space between us, the things we'd hidden, the hurt we couldn't ignore. We didn't have answers, but we agreed to try, to be honest, to listen, to respect what each of us needed. Later, when the conversation had faded, Adam moved close and pulled me into a hug. No words, no demands, just that quiet closeness that felt like a fragile promise. I rested my head on his chest and felt his steady heartbeat beneath my ear. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the fiery, thrilling love from the beginning. But it was real. It was a chance. He ended up sleeping on the couch that night. Not because we were angry, but because the distance between us was still there, and we needed time. Watching him there, vulnerable and quiet, I realized love isn't always about fireworks. Sometimes it's about showing up, even when it's hard. And for now, that would have to be enough. If you'd told me a year ago how this story would end, I don't think I would have believed you. Back then, I thought love was simple, something you just felt, and it carried you forward. I thought passion and trust were constants, like the sun rising every morning. But love, I've learned, is messy. It's complicated. It's not just about kisses and hugs or even about staying in the same room. It's about being seen, really seen, even when the parts you show are broken or scared or unsure. I used to think desire was about physical closeness, the spark between two bodies. But what I craved more was something quieter, something deeper, the feeling that my heart mattered, that my fears and hopes were safe in his hands. That's the thing, emotional intimacy isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's in the small moments, a touch that lingers without expectation, a glance that says I'm here, a silence that isn't empty but full of understanding. I made mistakes. I pulled away when I should have reached out. I built walls where bridges could have been. And maybe he did, too. Our story isn't perfect. It's full of cracks and flaws. But it's real. Whether we stay together or part ways, I carry the lessons with me. I've learned to listen to my own needs, to honor the spaces where I feel lost, and to ask for help even when it's terrifying. Most of all, I've learned that love isn't about losing yourself. It's about finding yourself alongside someone else, sometimes slowly, sometimes painfully, but always with courage. If there's one thing I want you to remember from my story, it's this: don't settle for a love that dims your light. Don't mistake physical closeness for connection. And never, ever be afraid to speak your truth, even if it shakes the foundation beneath you. Because in the end, the kind of love that lasts isn't the one that's easy. It's the one that challenges you, changes you, and makes you whole. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. 4.